John Candy is going for a vacation, and he's got no time for Dan Aykroyd's crap. Released in 1988 and written by John Hughes, The Great Outdoors tells the story of Chet Ripley, played by Candy, who takes his family on a vacation to a lake resort. But this vacation turns out to be anything but relaxing when his in-laws turn up and gate crash the vacation, where his sleazy brother-in-law Roman, played by Aykroyd, is driving him insane and turning his vacation into a nightmare, where all manner of wacky shenanigans ensue, to which Chet is going to need a vacation from his vacation, in this enjoyable family comedy starring two of the funniest Canadians of the 80s. I'm going a bit off topic here, but the other week I saw an old TV interview with John Candy, which he gave on his estate, and I was immediately struck with how kind and humble he was. He generally seemed like a nice, down-to-earth guy. You didn't get that Hollywood ego out of him. Instead, he seemed like a loving father who adored his little girl, with one of his hobbies being just laying about on his hammock. I swear, John Candy chillaxing on his hammock is my spirit animal. The interview is on YouTube, so I highly recommend watching it, especially if you're a fan of John Candy. So with that, 10 things that you didn't know about the great outdoors. Check it out, we shall. Number 10. Reuniting filmmakers and cast. The Great Outdoors was written by movie-making legend John Hughes and directed by Howard Deutsch. This was their third and final collaboration together, as the two filmmakers had previously worked together on Pretty in Pink and Some Kind of Wonderful, two films that were successful at the time. But it wasn't just a third film for Hughes and Deutsch to work together on, but also its two main stars too, Dan Aykroyd and John Candy, as the two funny men had previously starred in Steven Spielberg's World War II comedy caper 1941 and The Blues Brothers. And they would both go on to star in the 1990 comedy Nothing But Trouble. Incidentally, John Hughes was going to direct The Great Outdoors, but bailed so he could direct Planes, Trains and Automobiles instead, which was in production at the same time. This was because he simply wanted to work with Steve Martin. That, and he was also directing She's Having a Baby. Yeah, John Hughes was a really busy guy in the 80s. Like The Great Outdoors, Planes, Trains and Automobiles of course also stars John Candy, who would also star in Hughes' next movie, Uncle Buck. So the people who make and star in these Hughes movies seem to be a tight clique of people who seem to really enjoy working together, or at least that's how it seems. Number 9. Filming location. Despite being set in Wisconsin, The Great Outdoors was filmed at a small resort town called Yosemite National Park in Bass Lake, California. And I always felt that the scenery added character to the movie. Not only does the natural park look beautiful, but I always felt the towering mountains gave the movie a large scope and scale. If the location looks familiar, that's because it's the same location that was used for the start of Star Trek V. Yeah, that weird one where Spock, Kirk and Bones sing Row, Row, Row Your Boat around the campfire. The location was also used for the 1920 version of Last of the Mohicans, as well as going on to be used for the 1994 movie Maverick. I seriously want to go there, just to have a campfire and sing Row, Row, Row Your Boat. But maybe not get attacked by that bear with the big bear bum. That wouldn't be very fun. Number 8. Original title. Yep, believe it or not, but apparently the title of The Great Outdoors was not this movie's original title, but it was in fact going to be Big Country. Which I guess makes sense, but I don't know. To me, The Great Outdoors just has a flair about it and just stands out more. Although whenever it was shown on Australian TV during the 90s, I always found the title slightly confusing, as at that time there was an Australian holiday destination TV show which was also called The Great Outdoors. Seriously, does anyone else from Australia who was around in the 90s remember that show, or is it just me? The butt of the joke being, for John Candy, in this movie, the great outdoors are anything but great. Number 7. Destruction of the restaurant. A standout moment in The Great Outdoors is a scene where the two families are dining at a bar and grill, where Chet agrees to do what's called the 96er challenge, where if he eats this ginormous steak, he and everyone else at the table gets to eat for free. No shit, even as a kid I could feel his pain when watching this. Just seeing him sweat while trying to eat that last bit of steak always made me feel slightly queasy. The bar and grill that this scene was filmed in is called Deuce's Bar and Grill, which was located at Bass Lake in California. However, the bar and grill wasn't able to celebrate its newfound fame after the release of The Great Outdoors, as shortly after filming Wrapped, the establishment burned to the ground because of a gas fire. Damn, that's really unfortunate. But it's not all bad, as the place was rebuilt and even features posters and memorabilia of The Great Outdoors which are on display at the restaurant to proudly show customers that this is the place where John Candy did the 96er challenge. Number 6. Blues Brothers reference. As mentioned, both Dan Aykroyd and John Candy featured in the Blues Brothers movie, which was without a doubt one of the biggest and most celebrated comedies of the 80s. And the Blues Brothers somewhat makes a return in The Great Outdoors. Somewhat. As one of the songs featured in the movie is called Drag Boat, which was performed by a band called the Elwood Blues Revue, which was a continuation of the Blues Brothers band which carried on after the passing of John Belushi, with Dan Aykroyd performing the songs as his Blues Brothers alter ego, Elwood Blues. So yeah, in a weird way, despite the fact that Dan Aykroyd stars in The Great Outdoors, Elwood also sneaks his way in there. I don't know why that makes me really happy, but it does. Also, the set that was used for the cabin that the Ripley and Craig stay in is apparently the same set used for the country western bar in the Blues Brothers. Strange, hey? Also, speaking of the music that features in The Great Outdoors, the start of the movie famously uses the 1958 song Yakety Yak, when the Ripley family sing the song together driving on their way to their vacation.
Don't go back.
However, in the very same year The Great Outdoors came out, the classic song was also used in fellow comedy movie Twins. And seeing Arnold Schwarzenegger singing the song is, well, truly memorable.
Yakety yak! Yakety yak! Don't talk back!
Number 5. Both Candy and Aykroyd took time out to film a cameo for another Hughes movie. As mentioned, round about the time of making The Great Outdoors, Hughes was also working on Planes, Trains and Automobiles and She's Having a Baby. And the latter has a really bizarre ending, where the young couple in the movie, played by Kevin Bacon and Elizabeth McGovern, try to figure out what to call their baby, where suddenly a heap of celebrities who were big at the time briefly appear to suggest names, including Michael Keaton, who was one haircut away from playing Batman, and Matthew Broderick reprising his role as Ferris Bueller, another Hughes movie. And of course, among the celebrities handing out advice was John Candy and Dan Aykroyd, who you can clearly see were on the set of The Great Outdoors while filming their cameos, thanks to the cabin wall in the background. What's also interesting is that She's Having a Baby also appears on a TV screen in Planes, Trains and Automobiles, as well as a cameo from that movie's main star, Kevin Bacon. So I like the idea that these 3 Hughes movies, which he was working on at the same time, are all connected and reference one another. Number 4. May the drinks be with you. In The Great Outdoors, we see the Chet and Roman characters sitting on the porch with 2 glasses sitting in between them. And if you're a nerd with way too much time on their hands like me and pause this scene and look carefully, you'll notice that these are Star Wars themed glasses, particularly for The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. These Star Wars glasses were actually part of a Burger King meal deal, where you get a free Star Wars glass with your burger and fries. This makes me wonder, did a member of the crew get some Burger King meals and thus the Star Wars glasses too, and thought it would just be cool to decorate the set with the glasses? You know, a sort of Star Wars Easter egg, if you will. Either way, it's pretty cool. When it wasn't He-Man cups, it was Star Wars glasses. Yeah, Burger King had a thing for kitchen goods in the 80s. Number 3. DVD blooper. Any YouTuber can tell you that the YouTube comment section can be a pretty brutal place with no mercy. You screw up one tiny fact or mispronounce one name and you're doomed, as you will have a swarm of angry people brutally telling you where you went wrong and how much of a piece of you-know-what you are for doing so. And no point in asking for forgiveness. We don't do forgiveness around these here parts. You're basically screwed. You muck up and you're going to get a comment section bashing from the YouTube comment section fight club. Well, I think those people need to turn their attentions to this John Candy DVD combo special, which features Uncle Buck, The Great Outdoors, and Going Berserk. So what's the problem? I mean, what's not to love about this DVD collection, right? Well, early prints of the DVD packaging credited Candy's character in The Great Outdoors as Chet Adley, where in actual fact his character is called Chet Ripley. Seriously, DVD designers, what's going on? How could you screw that up? So as you can see, it just goes to show that no one is perfect and anyone can make a mistake. Even DVD box art designers. But seriously, Chet Adley? Where on earth did they get that from? Number 2, alternative poster. I love the poster of The Great Outdoors where we get a cheeky illustration drawing of Dan Aykroyd and John Candy standing in front of the nice outside scenery, with Candy being pulled up by Aykroyd's fishing rod and looking none too pleased about it, instantly setting up their irritant relationship between their characters in the movie. It was a nice touch making the poster also look like the cover of a magazine, although it makes me wonder if some people thought there was going to be a Great Outdoors Volume 1 Part 2. Anyway, the German poster is slightly different, as it has the same setup, only it's not a fishing rod holding up John Candy, but the ferocious bear that appears in the movie, which I actually equally like. I also love how he's not quite touching Dan Aykroyd, like the bear is thinking, shit, that's a nice jacket, I better not put my paws on it and make it dirty. So which is better, the fishing rod or the bear? Well, as with all art, it's up to the eye of the beholder. Modern media packaging uses this modern poster for the cover, which sees the Chet and Roman character getting tied up with rope by the raccoon, with Candy looking pretty happy about it all things considering. Number 1. The Great Outdoors reaction. The Great Outdoors was released in July 1988 and made a profit of $43.4 million at the box office on a $24 million budget, making it a reasonable profit but nothing too spectacular. Now, to be fair, Planes, Trains and Automobiles didn't do too much better, as that film only made $49 million. However, where Planes, Trains and Automobiles got critical acclaim, The Great Outdoors got critical meh, as it got fairly average reviews from critics. There were several complaints that the movie felt tired, substandard, and lacking in energy. And I know that I say this a lot, but seriously, lacking in energy? Did they not see the film? It's full of energy. Yep, I don't know why, but this one sort of came and went and just didn't wow people at the time. Recently, there have been talks about a reboot with Kevin Hart, but as of yet, nothing has come of it, so we'll have to see what happens. But in the meantime, we'll always have the summer of '88, when John Candy and Dan Aykroyd were on a funny vacation from hell. The Great Outdoors is definitely worth its weight in gold, and I think its popularity has grown over the passing years, thanks to TV broadcastings and home medias like VHS, DVD, and of course more recently Blu-ray. So I think in modern times it is now considered a comedy classic from the 80s, although maybe it doesn't get as much praise as other John Hughes movies, so this is probably the forgotten John Hughes film. So, go watch it and remember. Anyway, I'm Minty, and that bear's bum. Seriously. See ya.